uh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all our participants and our panelists. I'm very grateful to you, to all of you, for joining us for our webinar, Pakistan-US IT Cooperation, Unlocking the Potential.
Gone on mute, Aisha.
Sorry, sir, ye haath lag gaya tha. I'm sorry. I'm particularly grateful to you, sir, for joining us from Washington. And we have two wonderful panels with us today. We have from Pakistan, Secretary Shoaib Siddiqui, Secretary Information Technology. We have Mr. Shabahid Shah, CEO, National IT Board, Mr. Shehzad Shahid, Chairman, Pakistan Software Houses Association, and a great panel of Pakistani-American entrepreneurs who have joined us from the US. We have from the West Coast, Mr. Najib Ghori, Chairman, CEO, Netball, Kevan Khwaja, Founder, TechLogics, Imran Hussain from Open Tri-State Chapter. Saad Ayub is Chief Digital Officer Zone, and he's also trying to join, having some technical issues, I think. Mr. Abu Bakr, CIO and Digital Officer, City MD. So today's event is an important event also in the sense that it is our first IT event from the Consulate General of Pakistan in New York and on the East Coast. So just to give you an idea of the interest that the event has generated, we have 300 IT companies and individuals associated with this industry who have joined us for today's webinar. And we hope that hundreds of others who are interested in this sector will be able to follow us live on Facebook and Twitter. Talking of technology, all of this undoubtedly underscores the importance that technology has come to play in our lives. And it is a sector where Pakistan is, alhamdulillah, making huge strides. Pakistan, is very heartening to know, is now ranked 9th among the booming digital economies of the world. Our IT sector is generating around 3 billion US dollars annually, out of which 2.5 billion are exports. And IT exports in Pakistan in the last financial year in 2019-2020 have witnessed a growth of more than 20%, which is quite phenomenal. Our government has also streamlined the regulatory mechanism, and we have a very attractive incentives program which has been put in place. All our panelists, both from Pakistan and from the US, will be talking in detail about some of these important developments. We have many international and US IT companies in Pakistan, and many more are coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're aware, Pakistan and US are also very close economic partners. And US is the largest destination actually for our exports. And it is also the largest destination of exports of IT services from Pakistan. And IT is a sector that offers many exciting possibilities for both the countries in the coming days and coming years. To speak in greater detail about these possibilities and about unlocking the potential, I now invite our Ambassador Dr. Asad Majid Khan for his welcome remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Aisha, for convening this very important conversation, I must say, because I am one of those who believe that technology is a low-hanging fruit in our bilateral relationship, and it is also a force multiplier. And I think this conversation becomes even more important in the present context, because one, US in any case is our largest export destination for the whole range of products. But in the context of IT, also US is our largest export destination. Uh, I was just looking at, and I welcome Shoaib Siddiqui Saab, Secretary IT, to this conversation, and you've put together two very, very powerful panels. I think that will give us a perspective of both sides of the equation, the export side as well as the import side. But on, this, the intrinsic value of United States as a market, then I think the opportunity created by COVID itself, where things are moving from the real to the virtual world. I think that has brought a renewed focus on technology. And I hear from my friends who work in the technology sector of how busy they have been over the past 5, 6 months. And this is going to continue. So over there, I clearly see an opportunity because, on the human resource side, linkages side, we also are blessed with very strong linkages, both in terms of the human resource potential that we have in Pakistan, in terms of producing a huge number of IT graduates every year, but also the presence of enterprising, dynamic entrepreneurs here in United States amongst the Pakistani American diaspora. So that really is a huge advantage that we have. And therefore, for the embassy and all our consulates, this has been a conversation that we attach a lot of importance to. And we started off by having the first technology summit convened in October last year in close collaboration with Najib Bhai, who is part of the conversation today also here, and Mr. Naveed Sherwani. And in the follow-up also, we have had several conversations, and we just organized another one in June to basically bring together all sides to better understand the potential, the possibilities, the opportunities, as well as the challenges. And I can't think of a panel or panels more qualified than we have today. So therefore, I would not really want to take any more time away from the experts that we have to hear their take and perspective on what we can do to foster a mutually beneficial relationship, to identify the potentials appropriately, and then to tap them effectively as we can. So I'll just stop here and over to you, Aisha. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, I don't know if Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary is there yet because I see his name, but if he is not, then we can move on to Shabahat Shah Saab for his remarks. And over to you, Shah Saab.
Thank you, Aisha. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us on this particular platform, on this particular forum. I think we probably should have been doing this kind of a webinar. I believe starting 2-3 years ago, when I actually saw the demand coming in from the US to the developing countries, especially in our part of the world. But I think probably COVID has given us an opportunity to connect everyone online, where it becomes really hard for people to connect otherwise, the way that we are accustomed to. So there are a lot of things that I can talk about in context of boosting IT exports of Pakistan. Since I've been, I spent quite a bit of time in US, specifically on both sides of the coast, East Coast as well as the West Coast. And I have seen the dynamics changing in the last 10 to 15 years. And I can see that particular demand, which can be met by Pakistan with the kind of a talent pool that we have, with the kind of products that we have built over the period of time. But there have been a few impediments which have actually limited our entrepreneurs to position our products, in the rest of the world, to that extent where we would, cover that kind of a mileage that our neighboring countries have done. So we thought a lot about it. What can we do in order to boost it? And to be very specific, I can share with you a few initiatives that we have taken in the last 8 to 10 months, um, in order to bootstrap first the entrepreneurship program in Pakistan, which will kickstart, the exports as well. So first of all, um, I'm very excited to actually share with you the kind of program that we have recently initiated with Amazon. Our IT exporters, our exports in general, they have been asking us, pretty loudly for the last almost like 2 to 3 years that our entrepreneurs do not have any access to the international markets because we do not find any place on the Amazon online store to sell anything. So the first good news here is that we have just initiated a program with Amazon directly, where Amazon has given us a 6 months of a probation period with a specific number of exporters, which is kind of, these exporters are kind of a mixed bag exporters, to position their products online on Amazon, uh, and introduce our products to the rest of the world. So that's one thing that I thought that I'll quickly share with you. It's not specifically in the context of IT exports, but exports in general. Um, and then a few months ago, Prime Minister of Pakistan, he was pretty much concerned with the IT exports that we have. We have got like documented IT exports that we have. The numbers that Aisha just pronounced, believe you me, this is just the documented IT exports. There have been, if you multiply this number by 3 or 4 easily, that is the kind of exports that I have actually seen going out of Pakistan, through different ways, through different ways, and the resultant of those routes that have been taken to close those exports is without any taxation dollars coming to Pakistan. So we have taken another initiative, a while ago, um, to place an international gateway to that extent that our small to medium enterprises as well as freelance community should be able to leverage that gateway to position their products, in the global markets, at the same time get the remittances through the gateway itself. That, I mean, at a very rough estimate is, once we put the IPG, International Payment Gateway, online, we would be very comfortable to at least double our exports, documented exports, in a span of a year. So I'm pretty excited about it. We are still going through the norms. We haven't done that kind of an exercise ever in Pakistan to place an IPG in Pakistan, but we are well underway. And we're talking to all the stakeholders how fast we can position an IPG in Pakistan. Uh, and then lastly, I would also like to touch a little bit. I would like to steal the thunder away from Siddiqui Saab. I'm sure he's brimming all gangs up to talk about what kind of initiative that MOIT has been taken. But I have also been devising and working very closely with Ministry of Commerce to devise a plan, a marketing plan using all, if not everywhere, all the significant Pakistan's foreign missions across Western Europe, specifically on the East Coast as well as on the West Coast of US, and a few areas in ASEAN region. How we can better market, Pakistan's IT exports, product stacks, and the services offerings that we have laid down for Pakistan as well as in other parts of the world, effectively using the government of Pakistan's platform. That is one program that I am very close to finalizing with Ministry of Commerce. And I will be reaching out to Talat Saab and whosoever is managing on the West Coast as well, how we can execute that program in US, beginning US first, and on to the Western Europe as well. So marketing is the key. That's where I'll just stop, and I'll give opportunity to Aisha to ask questions that you may have, or any other, um, any other comment that you would like me to specifically hone on.
I think the Q&A comes at the end, Shabbat Sab. We'll now invite Federal Secretary for Information Technology, Shoaib Siddiqui Saab, to kindly make his remarks. Thank you, sir.
Well, good morning to you with there, all of you who are there in America, Excellency, our Excellency, Mr. Majid, and Talat, our very ace officer, who's there as commercial counselor. And I'm so glad and so thankful to the embassy and the commercial counselor over there, led by the ambassador, to have organized this wonderful event, much needed event, because, as Shavahat was saying, we have devised a coinage during this COVID, opportunity and difficulty. And IT is coming up as a very wonderful opportunity all over the globe, and particularly for a country like Pakistan, we are seeing many avenues of growth. Let me tell you that we value American industry, we very much value American market, and we would like to explore as much as possible. To begin with, the IT mission in Pakistan is being led by the president and the prime minister, no less than them, And then we have the IT minister. The commerce minister is in loop very much, as Shabahat was saying, through commercial counselors, we are connected. And then the foreign minister of Pakistan, who has himself launched his digital program, and we were part of that. Then I wrote personally to the foreign secretary of Pakistan. I'm thankful to him that he wired in my letter to all the ambassadors, and we are getting contacts from various parts of the world, our missions abroad. Because, they are the people, they are the representatives of the country who can promote the image of the country, needs of the people, and requirements of the industry, and find markets for the industry. There is a committee on emerging technologies headed by the president himself. And the prime minister sees such a lot of scope and vision in the growth of IT. Exports, as Shabat was saying, very right, documented exports, probably $1.1 billion. And exports all over the world have been going down. And today in the National Assembly Standing Committee, I was reporting to them that in Pakistan, year on year, it is 23% growth. During the COVID, it has been around 21, 22% growth, which is very encouraging, which is very heartening. And as the Excellency, our ambassador was saying, about 57% of our exports go to America, major market, North America. Wherever in the industry I move around, they say, please explore market in the North of America, in various parts of America, because that is the real place where our exports can be encouraged. And with motivated officers like Talat and his seniors, I think we have good deal of opportunity. Now, Pakistan companies are doing quite good. The Pakistan society is very largely mixed up youth and women folk, and the Americans would be happy to know that the youth and the women folk are playing their part in IT industry in the form of freelancers, in the form of regular members of the industry. And they are contributing to the exports component, to the IT component of the country, which earns foreign exchange and which earns a lot of money for themselves also. Then, as Shabazz said, international payment gateway is on the cards. He is himself going to take it forward, which will facilitate further. And moreover, he's also thinking of proposing a business connectivity channel also, which will help payment from city of Chicago or Florida or to a person living in Pakistan. So facilitation is very much. The State Bank of Pakistan, the regulator, the governor has been, because we had this meeting with all stakeholders, with the Prime Minister, and all are now aligned to support the export and industry of IT in Pakistan. So Governor State Bank and his team are regularly in contact with us, and they are supporting it. And they would obviously be looking forward to improving any regulations that supports IT exports scope in America. Then we have the Pakistan Software Export Board. Very soon we will be having a new managing director, a new person who is working abroad, and he'll be joining us, inshallah. So a lot of fresh blood is being brought in, the organizational setup, and more programs are coming up. The branding of items, the branding of our products is very high on the agenda. We have development projects which are being put in place, to promote IT industry and present a much better and much pronounced picture to the world at large, and obviously American market is our focus. We've also adopted a very facilitative approach with the industry. It's not this office and the industry separately. Mr. Shahzad Shahid and others would be online, probably reps from the industry. We're in very close touch with them. And, so it's all good environment in Pakistan. Moreover, the Prime Minister is very much interested in investments. So I request the embassy and those of the American people and entrepreneurs who are in this session at the moment, I request them to come and invest in Pakistan, a very populous country. The population is a dividend to give you profits and a lot of returns. Let me just share a few facts about the incentive packages that is being here, which probably might have been highlighted, but let me just repeat it. That we have tax exemption for IT companies till 2025. Foreign investors are allowed 100% ownership of equity in ITS companies and 100% repatriation of profits back home. IT-enabled software technology parks, they're there, they're also coming up, where proper infrastructure will be provided to the investors and the IT companies who want to come and set up their business here. We have 7 years tax holiday for venture capital funds. Liberal investment policy and 7 years tax holiday for venture capital funds. And the depreciation on computer equipment is about 30%. Much better, much reliable internet and high-speed connectivity. And programs to promote and expand internet are still very much on. So with this, I would say that, our industry is quite excited, wants to be promoted, wants to get opportunities for exports, and the government will facilitate. We look up to the US entrepreneurs to trust the Pakistani market, the Pakistani industry, and hopefully they would come up to their satisfaction levels. Before I just finish off, and a lot of hopes in the Pakistan embassy, the commercial counselor, very vibrant officer, and the excellencies team, and our consulates spread all over America. We look up to them. We would be very actively engaged with them. And I really appreciate, this is a golden opportunity for Pakistan industry to have been engaged by the Excellency, our ambassador and his team in such an important interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving a brief of what the government is doing and about the investment regime and the investment incentives. We just had 2 panelists from the government side, and now we have a panelist from industry side, Mr. Shahzad Shahid. He is elected chairman of PASHA, Pakistan IT Companies Association. He is the CEO of TPS Worldwide, a regional fintech, which is an enabler of digital payments. He's also a member of committee on emerging technologies in digital Pakistan, have been inviting the new companies and entrepreneurs and their efforts. I invite Mr. Shahzad to share his views about the potential of software houses of Pakistan, about what private sector is doing, how Pasha is able to contribute to the exports of Pakistan. Welcome, Mr. Shahzad.
Ji Salam Tala Saab, bahut shukriya. And I'm so sorry I have to turn off my video because Shahbaz Saab thought that his internet is patchy, but I think my internet today is somehow acting up. So I thought it's better to have my internet, my video off so I can be very clearly audible. So this is a great opportunity, Honorable Ambassador Saab, Madam Aisha Talat. I think the IT is one sector of Pakistan which has been showing growth year on year for the past so many years. So there has been no year in the past 5 to 10 years where IT exports has not grown. And this year, even with COVID and work from home and IP issues and whatever, we have posted a very decent growth, of IT services. Now, what does it prove? It basically proves that this COVID opens up a lot of opportunities for IT. Second thing is it always used to be considered as a sort of hindrance that Pakistan is a problem area to go to, and things of that sort. But when you're working from home, in that case, either you're working from Hyderabad in Sindh or you're working from California, right? It does not really matter because you're working from home. So working from home in this COVID lockdown has really given the right sort of impression that Pakistani tech industry and the Pakistani technical engineers are as productive as anybody else, even if they're working from home, which basically helps us put up a very, very better image of Pakistan, because we have been able to overcome the work from home risk that many people thought of. People have adjusted to it. Companies have quickly adjusted to it. We have a lot of things going on, and exports. US is certainly the main market. There are certain areas where we are working with Commerce Ministry, NITB, and IT Ministry. Shabahat talked about it. But I think areas where Pakistan is currently very, very eagerly working, and I think that will really open up a lot of more opportunities, is more sort of persistency or consistency in its policies. We see PTA coming up with different sort of decisions which do the perception of Pakistan. We are working very hard with IT and Commerce Ministry to manage those things. We have a lot of things to handle, but I'm so grateful to Shoaib Siddiqui Sahab and Razak Dawood, and Commerce Ministry for working hand in hand with the sector and helping us sort out the hindrances, which can certainly quadruple the export from Pakistan. One thing that we need from the US, from our embassy in the US, is to somehow act like liaison office or the bridge who can help us connect. And this is where we can certainly exports can really sort of jump very, very quickly. Thank you very much for now. I'm open to more questions.
Thank you, Shehzad Saab. We're noting the questions. The attendees are in fact putting up their questions, and that we'll take at the end of the panel discussion for the second panel as well. Now we will be starting with our second panel. We have very strong panels from the US side as well, of the CEOs of the companies who have been engaged in IT business for a very long time. First of all, I'll request the panelists from the US side to share their experiences, how their company has leveraged IT BPO potential of Pakistan, what are their future plans, what are the opportunities for other companies to use their BPO talent from Pakistan, and what are the challenges they have faced. First of all, I would request Mr. Najib Ghauri. Mr. Najib Ghauri is a founder and a chairman of board of directors and group CEO of NetSol Technologies, a US corporation providing global business services to public and private sector worldwide. NetSol Technologies is not only listed in the stock exchange, it has a global footprint with wholly owned subsidiaries in many countries, including US, Pakistan, and Thailand. Mr. Ghauri worked before setting up NetSol Technologies for 15 years with the Fortune 500 companies like Unilever and Atlantic Richfield Corporation. He is also very active in charitable and educational NGOs, is the founding member of the Pakistan Human Development Fund. Over to Mr. Najib Ghauri.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Mr. Ambassador, our dynamic Aisha Ali, thank you so much for inviting me. My new friend, Kevin Khwaja, assalamu alaikum. We talked LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm by nature a very optimistic and a very bullish person, an exciting person, because I believe this is the time the technology is going to be at a different level, a different paradigm. As some of you, my colleagues, understand exactly where we are right now and where we could go with the technology. My background, you mentioned, thank you so much for my introduction. I think I am so well connected with Pakistan from US for the last 25 years. Although I'm living in the US for over 40 years, I came in my childhood as a freshman and continued my education and did my career. Then I started with my three wonderful brothers, we are four founders in Pakistan to really create an opportunity for youngsters who have talent of IT back then. I mean, we were one of the pioneering company like Techlogic is 25 years or something. We realized that the best thing going for Pakistan back then was smart youngsters. Some education, skills that they lack, place to work where they can go and exploit their capabilities in programming and developing new ideas and software and so forth. So NestSol became a pioneer company where we utilize our talent, which is about close to 1,500 in Pakistan alone, to the point where we believe they're so smart, they're so intelligent, they're so qualified in their skills and their capabilities that they can support blue chip customers anywhere in the world. We support almost 25 plus countries with our software, and everything is developed, delivered, implemented. R&D is from our Lahore campus. That is, to me, a most incredible thing happening. Part of the IT industry, which I believe is now on a takeoff. Now, when you look at last 20 years, the companies have evolved from learning experiences, from young experiences to maturity, where now the industry I see, Mr. Mahmood Apni, you gave some good stats, very positive, encouraging stats. And I know that. I think the industry is growing, last few years consistently growing. It's not a young industry anymore. It's actually a maturing industry. And companies like NestSol and Techlogic and TRG and Infinity and System, and you name it, we are playing our part to enjoy the benefit of the talent we have. Second thing, I believe the landscape of IT is actually phenomenally improved in the last just 10, 15 years. So I think so many companies are coming to Pakistan, whether they're American or other parts of Europe, doing business with NetSol. The reason is simple. They get the quality product, quality solution. They get dedicated human resource, pool of people who are really learning. They also have energy and drive to do something for the industry and do something for Pakistan. So that spirit I see every day, every minute. And this COVID has actually made our people a lot more productive because we are working from home right now. So you have all the time and energy to do more. So I think it is imperative that we see that there's opportunity here with us, that this era, this decade, 2020, is a game changer. Because technology is in essence everything that is connecting the world. The world has become much smaller now. With digitization, with now mobility is on a run, and things have changed so dramatically that you can do everything, anything from your home. You don't need to go out. We support global auto sector as our premium target group. We support automobile industry, Daimler, BMW, Ford of the world, in Asia, in Europe, and US, and the banks. And our system run their multi-billion-dollar portfolio. If you just imagine, combined collectively 20,000 graduates coming out, I think every year, and hundreds of thousands of programmers, developers, engineers sitting in my company, in Techlogic, and many other well-reputed companies. And then you add the startups and the smaller companies. It is incredible, I think, database and the strength that Pakistan has. We have 35 or under about 65% of the population. That to me is the future. That is technology, because you look around Silicon Valley, all the biggest technology companies are based in US and some in Europe. Look at their ability, their skill, their capability that they can do anything and anything they want to. Pakistan, IT has that opportunity to become a significant part of global IT landscape. Pakistan has a lot of good stuff going on. I believe there's universities are growing, there's well-known schools here, graduates are coming out to 20,000. I want to see 100,000 coming out in 5 years' time. I like to see a lot more university, and I like to see revenue growth, $20 billion. Why not? I think there's an opportunity there, and we have our responsibility. Our colleagues have responsibility, but government has to do a few things, which you mentioned some. I believe better working environment where you have ease of doing business, taking money out of Pakistan to grow your businesses should be one of the examples that we find hardship. I'll talk more about it, but I thought maybe it's an introduction. I believe we are in a good state right now as an industry. I think it is on running mode. All the new things happening, new paradigm shift is really what our youngsters can help grow this whole industry, leaps and bounds. I'll take a break now and then I'll let others talk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Najib Wari. Apart from NetSol, TechLogix, as Mr. Wari has mentioned, is another company which is doing great for many years and is a model for new companies in the sector. Global IT services, consulting, and business solutions company, TechLogix operates in US, Middle East, and Pakistan. For this session, we have with us founder and co-CEO of TechLogix, Mr. Kevan Khwaja. Kevan's interests are focused around cloud transformation, business analytics, and alignment of enterprise IT initiatives with corporate strategy. Before founding TechLogix, Kevan worked at Boston-based Cambridge Technology Partners. He holds a master's degree specializing in GIS from MIT. Kevan is a past president of Open and has been involved in helping entrepreneurs through networking and enabling them to business opportunities. We welcome Mr. Kevan and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Talat. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I have a bunch of comments. Some of them have already been covered by other panelists, so I will seek a few of the topics that I wanted to talk about. My own view, and to give you some background, our company was among the first 3 or 4 companies to break into the software export market way back in 1995. And that was courtesy of the Pakistan government, because it took a delegation of about a dozen companies out of Pakistan. Most of us were very small companies. I believe we were only about a 20-person company at that time. We went and participated in an event called Comdex in Las Vegas. And most of us thought that this was an introductory trip and probably we'll learn a few things. But we were pleasantly surprised that 3 out of the 12 companies, including ours, we got our first software export projects at that event, which was in November 1995. So this year is about the 25th year of our company's export journey. So I've seen a lot of ups and downs over the last 25 years, and I'll touch upon what actually happened. In the beginning, I remember I was part of a meeting with, at that time in 95, the president of Pakistan was Mr. Farooq Lagari, and the Software Export Board had just been formed, and Mr. Shahid Mir was the first president. And at that time, the Software Export Board thought that we would cross $1 billion of exports in the year 2000. So just to give you my perspective, actually, I believe that we have steadily grown the export market, but the export market has actually grown very slowly over the last 25 years. And a major reason for, I can discuss a few things. The good things were that, as Mr. Shabahat said earlier, the Software Export Board continuously took delegations to various events. I myself have traveled as part of several delegations to several countries, including European countries, to China, to Japan. And at every event where we participated with other Pakistani companies, there was some breakthrough achieved. So I think the biggest initiative that the government has really done well, and which should be continued, is that more and more Pakistani companies, especially those who have limited means, should be taken to these, when the COVID crisis is over, taken to exhibit at these events all over the world, and potentially in ASEAN countries, as you mentioned earlier. These are newer markets that we should explore. So that's the good part. One of the things that has not worked is that the capacity of good quality software engineers, yes, surely we produce 20,000 graduates, but the people who can actually write very good quality software, that is limited. And I have, since my company works very closely with the top 6 or 7 universities, we've been working with the professors, but we actually even know by the time people graduate, who are the top 25% graduates that are graduating from these institutions. That capacity needs to be significantly enhanced. If you want to double the exports, for example, keep in mind that every engineer that we produce, if we put him to on an export project for an entire year, they only yield $25,000 to $30,000 of billing, to a US customer. So you can do very quickly a math that if you, for an additional $1 billion, you divide $1 billion with $25,000 and you will have a staggering number to look at. That's the number of people that we need to engage on the export side. So while the domestic market has tremendous needs and a lot of graduates are picked up by banking institutions, by other industrial concerns, the pool for the export market is rather limited. It's no more than 1,000 new graduates that one can hire in a year. That's the state. That means you're looking at a very small export growth that you can post per year. And that is what has happened practically. If you look at the 25 years, the capacity that we were adding in exports on average, it runs into $30–40 million at most. And that's why we have crossed the $1 billion bridge in a pretty long time. So I think what we need to do in a very short term, looking at the potential of the future, is to significantly invest in our top, let's say 8 or 10 universities in Pakistan, especially in their computer science programs. At MIT, for example, while every department has a lot of budgets, the computer science program has a budget of $1 billion, which is a staggering percentage of the MIT's investments in any program. So I would say, to give you some numbers, 10 years ago, the university where I did my undergraduate, which is the University of Engineering and Technology, Lahore, had a total budget of about $3 million, which was a third of my company's expense budget. So that's the staggering low budget of our top universities. That has to be doubled or tripled. These are very small numbers. Now, on the other comment that somebody made is that obviously due to COVID, people are working. I think it was Shahzad Shahid who talked about that people can work from home. There are pros and cons of what is happening due to COVID. The good thing is that the reticence that many American corporations had that we want work done on premises, onshore, that has gone down a little because everybody is working from home. So whether somebody is working in Boston or somebody is working in Gujranwala in Pakistan, as long as they have a good internet connection, means that they are in play now. So the reticence of many companies has gone down and they are more amenable to be approached for exports. The problem is that because everybody's working from home in the US and there are opportunities, there are also expectations that the person that you would work with in a remote is more culturally aligned with practices in the US. So the era that we saw in the past was the software development was still a hands-offish kind of thing. You give requirements to somebody and somebody will come back periodically after a month or two to give your deliverables back to the US customer. If now everybody's working remotely, the expectations is not that you will be interacting intermittently with a US customer. You are going to be interacting on a daily basis with a US customer. And what that means is that the people who are on the Pakistan side have to be more culturally attuned with practices in the US. They have to reply to an email from a customer within the hour as opposed to the next day. Secondly, the engagement models that when we work with customers, there are techniques and methodologies that every company has their own that we employ to service the customers. They will be now under greater scrutiny because of the nearness and the collaborative tools that are available. So we need to relook at some of these engagement models, and that's a challenge for Pakistani companies. If they can do that, if they can work in a more collaboratively nearshore kind of behavior due to tools like Zoom, other technologies that are available, there'll be greater opportunities to capitalize. Okay, but that does mean a lot of change. Pakistani companies have to look deeper into how we deliver projects to customers, and there is going to be a significant change in that coming in the next few months. So basically, these are my comments, and we'll participate more. I think I've already spoken a fair bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your candid comments. Next panelist that we have today is Mr. Imran Hussain. Imran Hussain is New York-based and is a CEO of a company, Claritas Solutions, which is a full-service digital agency. He has 25 years of experience working with large corporations and government organizations on strategic initiatives related to digital and technology transformation. Prior to launching this company in 2010, he worked at KPMG Consulting as a director for 15 years. He's also current president of New York of Open Tri-State Chapter, which in fact he reactivated after almost a decade. So over to you, Mr. Imran Hussain.
Thank you, Talat. Well, first off, I'd like to thank Dr. Asad Khan and Ms. Aisha Ali for organizing this. And I really do hope that what we are doing today ends up becoming a series which allows really an ongoing dialogue and discussion to take place between those that are within the US and particularly maybe within the IT sector in the US, and those that are in Pakistan and everyone that's in between. Before I even introduce myself and what my company does and what Open does, I've been looking at the webinar chat, and some of the things that are coming up are really really going to the core of, I think, what we need to talk about on discussions like this and on future discussions, which is really a lot of of course, the opportunities that Pakistan offers, but also where some of the real challenges are. And I think that, to be honest with you, I think companies like mine or NetSol or TechLogix, to a large extent, we've actually been solving and know how to solve some of these issues for ourselves, right? Because we've had to be in front of clients, and clients at the end of the day, whether it's in the US or elsewhere, really look for value. And value comes from quality, it comes from thought leadership, creativity, price. And so we do know how to solve for those things. And of course, we continue to scale and grow our operations, but we do have a good sense for how to solve for some of those things. Back to myself, Talat actually ended up providing much more of an introduction than I'd expected, but just briefly and where this fits in, Claritas Solutions, as Talat said, has been around for about 10 years. We think we're a little sort of unique, maybe from the traditional IT software house, because as a digital agency, we do creative branding work. We also do marketing communications work. We actually have a training solutions team, which actually does e-learning content development as well. So I think what we were challenged with and what we've managed to solve for is being able to acquire skill sets within Pakistan that maybe are not the traditional technology skill sets. We've, if you look at the range of skill sets that we have within our agency and our office in Karachi, it's pretty diverse and it's pretty broad. And I think what that goes to show, I think for myself, certainly, and I think probably is a lesson learned for a lot of companies that want to operate out of Pakistan, is that the skill sets are for sure there, right? There is no question about the fact that there is a lot of talent in Pakistan and talent that companies overseas can actually leverage, and IT companies in Pakistan can actually capitalize upon to actually be able to do more. So cross-functional team, we've been supporting large Fortune 500 corporations in the US and Europe for a lot of years now. And just briefly on Open, the organization of Pakistani entrepreneurs, which is now a global organization, 14 chapters globally. Kevan has been very much part of it and has been part of Open Boston as well as Open Global. And I know that a number of the people that are on the panel right now are on the Zoom webinar right now are actually members of Open. So it's a thriving community, and one that I think we encourage all IT companies or really any professional out there, whether in Pakistan or in the US, to take advantage of. Reach out to one or more of the chapters within Open, get the help and support and advice and counseling that we think we can provide, and that might help some of those companies that maybe are at an earlier stage of growth and evolution to be able to take them to the next level. With all that said, I wanted to just kind of raise 3 points on where I think the opportunities are for Pakistan. Number one, I think everyone talks about the freelance economy. There are hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of freelancers that are on Upwork and on Fiverr that are from Pakistan. And many of these are skilled professionals that have figured out how to make a good living just by doing freelance work. However, they do struggle with some structural issues. Number one, payments. It's come up a number of times on the webinar chat. PayPal, some of the traditional ways, PayPal, Upwork, Fiverr, getting payments from these platforms is not easy. Literally yesterday, I was exchanging messages with someone who's going to help us out with some work that we need within the Open Tri-State chapter and just building our websites and basic stuff. And he said, I don't know how to get payments. He had to get a friend who has a PayPal account to actually make that happen for him, right? So structurally, some of these individuals or small companies struggle because they just don't have a way to actually make and receive payments to companies overseas. Second, skills. Kevan talked about this. We just don't have, we have some skill sets and we get plenty of those from universities. But when we look at things like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and many other areas, we really need to be thinking about how we set up centers of excellence, that basically allow those specific skill sets to be built up in a structured, determined way, so that we are actually producing tens of thousands of those resources that are going to be equipped to actually handle the rigor of and the demands that are placed on them by clients overseas. And that means workforce readiness as well. It's not academic skills, it's workforce readiness. How do we get these resources to actually understand how to work in environments that are much more professional, maybe much more advanced, and bring that knowledge and skill sets to the table. And third is collaborations. What we find time and time again is you've got great freelancers out there and even small companies, they're not talking to each other. They're not exchanging ideas. When someone comes to them and says, you're going to go build a website, they can build that website extremely well. But then that same company says, how about a social media strategy? And they don't know what to do. That is lost opportunity. If there were co-working spaces or incubators or whatever we want to call them that allow these individual freelancers to operate in environments where they can put something across on a Slack channel and say, hey, I just completed work for a client. The client is extremely happy, but now I need a social media strategy. Who can jump in and support that? Being able to open up those pathways so that others within that freelancer ecosystem or even small company ecosystem can jump in and provide those skill sets. I think that's the way that we're gonna close this gap. There are tons of opportunities. There is no question about that. I think we have great talent and depths of talent, but I think structurally we need to do some things to actually change the equation and really make it favorably for us. Couple of last kind of parting things. Zulfi Jaffrey, who's on our open board, talked about agri-tech. Again, great example of where you take skill sets from a technology perspective and you merge them with industry experience and you say what needs to happen within agri-tech in order for this to have a real outcome and for companies in Pakistan to actually be able to position effectively with potential buyers and decision makers in the US, Europe, and elsewhere. Sayyad Shah talked about PayPal. Again, goes back to, at the very core, payment systems. We just need better payment systems. This can't be a roundabout way of getting payments. It's got to be very clear and it's got to be consistent and the same as what other countries are able to offer their freelance community. And then Yusuf Jan talked about the Roosevelt Hotel, right? And he talked about, several ways in which we can have marketing. I know that, Shoaib talked about that as well earlier. Yeah, we need more marketing, but I think we need it outside of conferences as well. We need digital marketing. We need better collateral. We need all kinds of marketing engagement, and we need a brand strategy that allows us to position Pakistan and the talent that's available in Pakistan at really on the global stage so that we can really make things happen. So that's all I have. And of course, I'll be on later if there's any specific questions or anything that I said. Thank you, Talat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Imran Hussain. Our next panelist is Mr. Saad Ayub. Saad is Chief Digital Officer at Zones. In this capacity, he is responsible for developing overall digital strategy and driving transformation of Zones business model. He has a wide range of experience of management consulting and leading technology organizations. He has a long track record of leveraging digital and emerging technologies to transform organizations, formulate new business models, and facilitate enterprise growth. He has published numerous papers in the field of artificial intelligence. In fact, he has a PhD in computer science with specialization in artificial intelligence. He has been named one of the premier 100 IT leaders by Computer World magazine. Thank you very much, Mr. Saad, and over to you now.
Thank you, Dalit, and thanks for everyone joining. It's an interesting discussion. Let me first give you a background on what we are doing. So I work for a company called Zones. We are roughly a $2.5 billion company globally. And we had actually moved our operations into Pakistan. So we have nearly 400 plus people in Islamabad and another 30 in Lahore. So when we talk about IT and what we are doing and how we can actually grow the technology in Pakistan, I think of it, there are two ways of looking at it, right? One is the policies of the country. The second is the investment of the company. And I've been reading some of the chat sessions going on too, right? So when I think of the policies of the company and the investment, I think in three buckets, right? What do we want to do to attract the companies to come in Pakistan? Because we have been operating for the last few years with hundreds of people there. Secondly, how do we keep them in Pakistan, right? I mean, it requires a different type of mindset to make sure that these people are still, or these large companies are there. And then the third is, what do we do to grow them? So I think of really, if I think among these three dimensions, right? So the part of attracting the talent is that we need to make sure we have the infrastructure. People talked about here that people work from home or not. We actually lucked out partially because back in October, our office in Islamabad, everybody was worried that all that dharna that was gonna be done by the Maulana Sahab, office will be closed and nobody will be able to work. So we actually moved our entire infrastructure so that the people can work from home. So when COVID hit, all our 400 people did not miss a beat and everybody was working from home, figured out how we can do that. But what I feel like is that if I think about it, when there are three big buckets, right? So the one bucket of opportunity for us is in the application space. India, many other companies have played in the application space, but they have played more for a business applications point of view. For us, the talent or opportunity there is areas where we can use our technology knowledge, like analytics and BI could be a space. So we'll have to pick a space, and one of the panelists also talked about it, right? In the application world, we have to pick 2 or 3 major spaces to go after, and then make that as your value proposition. The second thing that is now emerging, and I think this is the change that's happening recently, is that infrastructure used to be a touch play, right? Support of infrastructure, you had a data centers, people were working in there. Now that is becoming touchless. And the reason I use that term is that if it is touch, if I'm touching a customer in US or touching my employee in US, it's one thing, but if I'm doing it remotely, I can do it anywhere. So infrastructure space, especially managed services, monitoring, those type of areas are emerging now, right? So if we have the right investment to train our people there, we can actually drive a lot of talent and leverage that on that space. And the third is, to me, is targeted services, right? So if I look at managed services, people talked about call center way back, Philippines tried to play that space, and they had a government support to go after it. The other part of tech services or a call center services for infrastructure is an area that is fastly growing because a lot of things are now moving to a different type of an infrastructure play. That could be an area where we can think as a nation on how to invest, right? We talk about technology and IT services, but we only think about application spaces, and then we think of programmers, right? So that's, in my mind, the major part. Now, if I think of is, okay, those are opportunities. What are the things that we can do as a country? I think our one biggest problem is in what Singapore did when they tried to make finance, right? Like they came in and they said, we will do joint training. Like we need to figure out what areas to fix in and then do joint training where you have the government supporting the training of the people along with the companies who are investing in there. The second part that I find the biggest problem in Pakistan is middle managers or middle management. And how do we actually bring that up? Because unless you have, if I call developers at a D level, then the D+1 or D+2 levels are very hard to find in Pakistan. And if I can't have a manager of a good manager of a manager in Pakistan, you can't have large companies play there, right? Like the moment they reach that level, they're probably leaving Pakistan. So that's our biggest problem. And I think the third thing that I find that we are not doing and that we might want to leverage is tier 2 cities. I think the focus right now still is Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi. We are not thinking of tier 2 cities, and there's a huge talent in those tier 2 cities which goes to the major cities. And if we can create software park or some of those type of opportunities in there, and even if we don't create software park, even if we give the infrastructure and internet bandwidths into those cities, there is a big boom that we can actually have from that side. So those are the things that I think we need to do. I still feel and still experience one of our biggest roadblocks still is our policies are still old, regardless of what we say about incentives. And that's where I feel like we need to figure out how to make sure that the companies who are here do not leave. And I think we need to go after 2 or 3 large anchor companies. The only thing Pakistan needs to do is, really try to get 2 or 3 large anchor companies move into Pakistan. It will feed our, freelancers, and it will be just like any other large industries. When it moves in, one large industry moves it, it's going to build a lot of vendors around it. So if I have to ask anything to Pakistan government, they should really go after, pick 3, try to get one of them in the country, and that will really fuel our progress. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saad Ayub, for your comments. Finally, I would invite Abu Bakr. Mr. Abu Bakr is CIO and Digital Officer at CityMD and Summit Medical Group. Previously, he was CIO and CTO of Chobani, New York. He also worked as President and Head of IT for Barney's. He has experience in full life cycle project planning, development, and execution. Over to you, Mr. Abu Bakr, for your comments.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Asad and Ms. Aisha and everybody to put this program together and Talib. So I think I would say this is a great effort and this is a start, and hopefully this is the beginning for many more to come. And hopefully, even if we get the feedback, which is not 100% positive, that means we have something to learn and continue to do more of it. That's how we're going to get better and engage. So just a quick introduction myself, and you did the introduction. I've been in the US for 30 years. I've been involved in the IT industry for about over 20 years. I've been working with different companies, different brands at this level, at the C level, for more than 10 years. And I personally have been involved and worked with Pakistan and other countries too in the offshore industries, but in Pakistan for at least 15 years. And I've worked very extensively. I've traveled and managed this. I just have to say, working with multiple countries, I think we should take some credit with its due that my experience working with multiple countries, I don't think Pakistan's talent and Pakistan execution and Pakistan's delivery was anything different than any other country that I worked with. So I think there's a lot to be said that we do have a very amazing opportunity to harness to what we already have, a great pool of talent and a growing industry. But since a lot of these points have already been said, so probably would say something that will repeat, but I'll try to say something different. But never let a good crisis go unnoticed, right? I think this is probably one of the themes that we've been saying, that the COVID creates an opportunity for a lot of people. And so what it does is it's shrinking the world. Obviously, globalizing is getting better and better. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'm going to pick on a few points that few people made. I was involved probably 15 years ago or 20 years ago when Dr. Atar Rahman was involved, and we were trying to do these things, and we had the same ambitions of $1 billion export in 2000. And even then we had the same forums and we talked about some of those things, and hopefully some of them got implemented, some of them not. And hopefully this time we're probably going to take a little bit more focused approach. But things about having the local presence is extremely important. So before I go there, but I do want to commend Shabbat, and we should be very hopeful. I'm an optimistic guy, so I'm going to say bringing Amazon in, it's a huge opportunity. If you can make it work, I think that will open up so many opportunities for Pakistan in general. And Pakistan's gig economy obviously is still growing at the fourth and the largest in the world, or fourth fastest growing in the world. I think there's so much more you can do. And once you get to that horizon, I think the most important news, if you look for Pakistan IT, it still comes up, is that Pakistan is number 4th fastest growing freelancing economy in the world. I think it just creates the halo effect. And that halo effect is so much important because it leads into your next initiative, which is your branding and marketing plan, which is absolutely needed. Everybody talks about it. In all of this, there's a lot of good that is going on. I think and that's my opinion, that what we are not doing good is we do not have a very comprehensive, cohesive communication strategy and communication plans too. There's so much good going on, but nobody's communicating. I can tell. I mean, I was looking at the chats too, as everybody else. And there's some good comments and there's some constructive comments, but the idea is that nobody, I would say majority of the initiatives that people are talking about it here is not known to the community, is not known to the people who are actually being involved and who've been actually want to do something about it. They're passionate, they want to do something, but they're like, oh great, this is what I heard. How do I confirm? How do I validate? How do I do this? I think if we can come up with some kind of a communication plan and a strategy out of this one initiative to say, how do we constantly communicate the progress? This is the first time I've been involved and been very in touch with a lot of people in this startup space in Pakistan, which is a very humming space. But I didn't know some of those things that were there. So I think how do we come up that creates the positive impact and halo impact to the industry will be great. So communication plan is this. A couple of ideas around if I take the IT take a different head as a corporate strategy head, how do we actually move things forward? How do we actually grow things forward? We capitalize on our strengths and then we actually propel those, right? So what are the strengths for Pakistan, right? Look at it. There are some ideas that out of the box ideas to think about it. Medical devices company, right? Pakistan is probably one of the largest medical devices exporter in the company, in the world. Sporting goods, we are probably one of the largest exporter of the sporting goods for football. Agricultural, we are one of the largest there. How can we leverage some of those export relationships and partner them and offer them, says, we send 50% of medical devices comes from Pakistan, but we have an offering for others sectors also, because these people already know the country, already have the relationship, already believe in the product, already actually work with this and are comfortable with the country. If we do offer them as a complementary to what we have already worked, will be an additional say. That will be another less barrier to entry to say, how do we partner with people that we have already established those things, Nikes of the world, and the people who work with us for years and are very comfortable investing, and then we can break that one barrier down. I know there are so many of them, but there's one barrier down to say, I do not know if I can work with Pakistan. But you know what? We've been doing this for years, for decades. Maybe that is another way and avenue to look and penetrate markets. That's just one of them. The other thing is more tactical. And I think Kaywan said it right. And when he said it, I vaguely remember again, and I had it this in. There's so much you can do if you don't have boots on the ground. There's so much. Why are we not officially organizing, helping, supporting, getting people on Comdex type of shows? And there are many other shows out there where thousands of people are there for only one reason. They're looking for a partner. They're looking for a product, or they're looking for a service. That's all they're here for. There are thousands of them out there. And if we do not have a presence there, if we do not invest in a presence, and a lot of smaller companies may not have the bandwidth or the capacity to do that, how do we enable them? And I think Kevin just validated this, that his first project came out from 1995 from Comdex. Comdex is one of the many. There's other events that happens specifically on the software side. I do remember having this conversation with PSCB a long time ago and says, why don't you have your own presence there? because everybody there is there for a reason, and the reason is to find a partner, find a service, find a product, get their local boots on the ground there. There's so many other things that associations, partnerships. In working in the US, living in the US, we all know that these research institutions, these educational institutions have millions and millions of research money. How do we penetrate and get some of those? Because they are always looking, they are much more open, they're much more broad-minded because they are research-based organizations. Have we gone and actually pitched and created a pitch for them to get a slice of their millions and millions of dollars of research endowments all over the place that they have? Have you gone through this and see if you can invigorate it? Because if you get into that academia world, I think you're going to start to see a lot of these exponential impact coming out of those universities. So I think those are some things. And then there's always this myth, or not a myth, but there's always this question of, should overseas Pakistanis or diaspora should do more to send business to Pakistan? And how can we get more of the engaged? How do we get them to do more with Pakistan? I think that is a little double-edged sword for people, and I can tell for myself, I mean, I probably have done it in the past, but it's not that easy, right? It's hard. So it goes both ways. If you bring the supply, if you bring the right marketplace into it, and then you can do a little bit of a push on this side, that will work. It can't be just one way. I think there's this misnomer that it's always the overseas Pakistanis that can drive it. I think it has to be partnership together to say, are we doing enough on the supply side? Are we making enough success stories on the supply side? And then the companies and even the diasporas of the Pakistani diasporas, they will come and they will follow, but it just can't be one way or the other. So, and then engaging the overseas Pakistanis, it's always this, and I can speak for it because I'm one of them. There are so many people out there, there are hundreds of out there that are very passionate. The only reason they want to do is because they want to, it's not about the money, it's about the passion, it's about the nationalism, it's about the way that they want to do something for the country because they have done something. But how do we create a process or a forum for them to have their voice heard? If you look at this, there are about 135 people on the call today, on the viewership. There are a lot of active chats going on right now. And there are a lot of people who are saying great ideas. How do we channel those things? So I strongly urge all panelists and the people who have been involved in this to look at all the critical feedback that is coming there. And how do we channel that passion into something much more constructive? This is a lot of free talent pool that we're sitting on. This one message just went out 2 days ago, and you have 135 people dialed in, listening to it, not because they want to just see a Zoom video, because they have some passion to do something about it, or they have some interest to do something about it. And how do we channel that passion? How do we create this? If we just leave it at here to say, yes, great ideas, good challenges, but not follow up, it's going to be one of those other things that we had another great session from a counselor, embassy and ambassadors, and everybody was there, but then there was no follow-up. So I would strongly encourage that we create a forum, a communication plan, and then follow up with the message. Even the message comes back and says, these are the things that we heard from this session, and these are the things that we're going to follow up, and if you want to sign up. Just simple as that, acknowledging their communication, their messages, their ideas, even if it's good, bad, or it doesn't matter. Just acknowledging it, get them engaged. And if you get them engaged, you're going to have multiplier factor there. So I'm going to stop here. There's a lot of passion here, and there's a lot of passion in the participants, but I'm open to any questions if anybody has. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Abu Bakr, for your very detailed views. As Mr. Abu Bakr has mentioned, we are having quite a few questions and a very frank chat in the chat box. The panelists may actually see that as well. And if somebody wants to respond, they can respond. First of all, I would request Mr. Shabahat Ali Shah to respond to some of the questions that the points that have been raised by Mr. Kevan, as well as a few of our the attendees are pointing out to the issue of payment gateways, the PayPal, and is there any currently on board plan for our national payment gateway?
If I could just briefly jump in. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. Just a couple of important housekeeping announcements, which I should have made earlier, actually. Unfortunately, the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister, Ms. Tania Durus, was not able to join us as she was called for a last-minute urgent meeting. So she sends her regrets, and we were hoping that she would be able to join us towards the end of our discussion, but the meeting is still ongoing. So, Secretary Missing also, unfortunately, for some technical reasons, he was not able to log in, although he tried and his office tried. So he will not be able to be a part of this conversation today. And coming to the question and answer in our discussion, I think, Talat, you picked up the right one. There's, I think, about 70 to 80% questions related to payments. And I think Secretary IT in his remarks touched on that earlier. And there's a lot of detailed questions about it. And mostly people are very concerned about how they're not able to make payments and how they're not able to get their money out of Pakistan. And earlier, when we were thinking of doing this conference in a physical format, and we had our discussions with a lot of IT entrepreneurs in the US, this was actually the question that was on top of everybody's agenda and on top of everybody's list. So, sir, if you could kindly talk a little more about the payment mechanism and how there's this gap between what we say and what actually happens on ground. That's been touched upon by a lot of people in the chat as well as by our panelists. Thank you, sir.
To me, you say?
Sir, do you want me to repeat, sir?
No. Are you saying to me?
Ji, sir. Ji, sir. And then Shabahat Saab came for.
Yeah, Shabahat also chip in. As I said earlier, that there have been issues in the payment, obviously, taking out the money and retention of foreign exchange. These are crucial questions, and obviously, industry people would be very much concerned about it, and they would definitely be looking for various facilitation in this regard. As I said during my talk, the State Bank of Pakistan has been made to realize, and they realize also, that for promoting exports and to promote investment, their regulations are required to be constantly reviewed, and they are in the process of doing that. They have facilitated payments for freelance account. We've got a company under the name of Ignite. Shabazz is the chairman of the board of directors. The Ignite company signed an MOU or a working arrangement with the Jazz Cash, which would definitely go a long way in helping the freelance in their account issues and in their payment matters. Similarly, with the State Bank of Pakistan, in view of FATF issues, the State Bank of Pakistan has certain requirements for account opening. But when we interacted with them, Shahzad Shahid has been talking to them, Pasha has been talking to them. There has been some leniency as far as account opening is concerned. But some basic information, obviously that is required, and that would be required in any part of the world. The conditions are not that stringent, but through these webinars, through the interaction with the industry, definitely we'll keep on correcting the situation, correcting the issues, and also facilitating the regulations wherever needed. We are in a constant effort on that. We realize the anxiety regarding payment matters, and the government and the regulator are moving in the right direction to address that, and not in isolation, but in consultation with the industry. Shabbat, may like to say something on this, please.
Yeah, thank you, Siddiqui Saab. I mean, I can go, guys, I can go on a very long rant, but I'll try to be as brief and precise and concise as possible. So let's take this subject of PayPal, because such a burning issue, such people are so enthusiastic about it. So first of all, absolutely, we need to have a payment platform like PayPal in Pakistan. But unfortunately, so I know the CEO of PayPal, Dan Schulzman, for the longest of the years, and I met up with him in Silicon Valley also last October. The problem that Pakistan has, or the PayPal has with Pakistan, is they do not have a business case, right? They do not see a business case at least 3 years down the road. So business case is one part, and the other part is what kind of a holding environment Pakistan can provide to a payment platform like PayPal, so that if they deploy their infrastructure there, gets their company registered in SCCP, what kind of a legal framework are supposed to observe in Pakistan. They should have the comfort that if we are operating in Pakistan for a number of years, we would be legally protected by the local community or the local, the local customers by the government of Pakistan, at least for a specific number of years. So that's where we need to do some work, right? But on the other side, we need to show them a business case also why they should come to Pakistan. So, I mean, these are a couple of things. But then again, we can actually work in both of these lines. We are still working on these two lines, both of these lines. But it seems to me that this is a far cry at the moment. So what shall we do? Shall we stop? No, we should not. We should deploy our own payment gateway and then create a business case based upon our own gateway for PayPal to integrate with our payment gateway. So that they should be limiting, their risk will be automatically mitigated because they would not be deploying any of the infrastructure here, but just be integrating with our payment gateway. That's what the strategy is at the moment. We are trying to accelerate that strategy. We're trying our best to deploy the international payment gateway within this year. I am seeking Secretary IT Siddiqui Saab's help to accelerate that, and we are moving pretty fast now, moving forward. So that's one piece that I wanted to discuss. And then what Kivan actually said, and probably a couple of other guys, on the quality of human resource that we have. So just to let you guys know that we have just initiated a particular program on the request and on the efforts of President of Pakistan, that there is a company coming from Silicon Valley who has been chartered to train the IT human resource coming fresh from college, and then give them an exposure of what is going on in Silicon Valley, try to give them at the end of that graduating training program, also give them some kind of an exposure of what is going on in the rest of the world, including Silicon Valley, and perhaps give them some opportunity to work, outside Pakistan as well. So that's something that we have taken up. That needs to be multiplied with a factor of 10, by the way. 25,000 graduates, tech graduates coming out, fresh grads from the uni. And I think this is what my personal opinion is. Kivan may have something else to chip into that. I think not more than 5% are actually competitive, globally. We need to make them more competitive. On the branding side, the third point on the branding side, I already had a plan. I mean, this godforsaken pandemic hit the world at large. So my plan got a little bit stalled. I wanted to open up an office in Silicon Valley so that a platform should be given to our entrepreneurs, young companies working within the ambit of Ignite, to take them to Silicon Valley, kind of a platform, and give them exposure, a platform to pitch their ideas to the venture capitalists of Sand Hill Road, for that matter. I think Abu Bakr knows what Sand Hill Road is all about. Is the biggest of the biggest venture capitalists who actually operate from there, right? If they get an idea, they would not think twice, to invest in that idea, and then they will come to Pakistan and open up an office there. Having said that, what the other question that they're going to ask is that, okay, I'm going to invest $50 million or $100 million in Pakistan in that particular company. what kind of a guarantee that I have 2 to 3 years down the road that I would be able to extract profits? Well, I will be able to extract profits, but I would be able to take my return on investment outside Pakistan as well. That's where we need to work a little bit in terms of our policies, that we should be able to give a comfort to these international investors to come and invest, make money. We should give them an environment to make money, and then we should also give them a path to take their money out and invest elsewhere. They do it or not, that's besides the point, but we should give them this kind of a path. Until unless we don't give them the path, they will not come. It is kind of a dynamics of the venture capitalist world. And then last but not the least, suddenly something more hit me, because I used to travel quite a bit in US. I have seen, this is for Talat Saab and for Honorable Ambassador as well, our neighboring country has got more than 100 incubators across US who have generated on average more than $1 billion of revenue from each and every incubator in US, right? Over the period of last 10 years. How many we have? 0. So I want to make this kind of a drive within our our country also, and the big companies who are operating outside Pakistan as well, to go and invest in some of these unis, irrespective of what kind of an audience you get, but at least you've got the brand name out there. That there is a Pakistani company like NetSol, like Elixir for that matter, or any other bigger software houses who are stationed out of a particular uni in UT Austin for that matter, Caltech for that matter, and they are honing into those ideas and bringing our local human resource also to carry out some kind of a project there. I think these are a couple of things which our neighbors have actually done really, really well on in US, and they have extracted much, much bigger benefits and advantages out of it, which we need to do as well. There's kind of a few thoughts there. I can talk a lot, but there are a few thoughts that I wanted to share.
So, Ambassador Khan, if I could just request you to talk a little bit about the PayPal and payment intuitions.
Well, yes, I think this is an important issue, not in the context of IT-related transactions, but also in the context of overseas expat Pakistanis maintaining accounts in Pakistan and doing all kinds of transactions from United States. Remittance is an important source of foreign exchange for Pakistan. And for this reason, the other day, we actually organized our own internal conversation with the State Bank of Pakistan, and where they brought together their entire team, led by their deputy governor, to discuss the issue of remittances and some of these payment platforms. And frankly, I was surprised to learn, and frankly, after years and years of foreign service, this was the first time that I actually got to hear a comprehensive presentation on what we are doing on the remittance front. I got details about the Pakistan Remittance Initiative. So we will be convening a general conversation on the remittances with the Governor, State Bank of Pakistan, doing a comprehensive presentation on that. But what I want to share today here is, of course, remittances, when we are talking about remittances, we are talking about individual to individual transactions, business to business transactions. You know, I didn't know that there are 13 platforms. It's not just PayPal. 13 platforms that are available out there to basically do those transactions. And out of those 13 platforms, 10 platforms are actually free if your remittance amount is up to a certain point. So, and this is the information that we lack. We are going to share this through a webinar like the one that we are having today. But then having said that, it is not to in any way minimize the importance of bringing to Pakistan platforms like PayPal. And we have been in conversation with them, and we hope to move faster on that. I just wanted to make this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. If any of the panelists of both panels want to respond to any of the questions that are being asked or the discussion that is being generated in the chat box.
Can I come in?
Talat, I would only say that, it's a matter of confidence building. Today's webinar will send the news across. Pakistan is much more flexible than before, policy-wise, investment-wise, and industry facilitation-wise. The mindset is more open now, and we in the government sector, led by the political leadership, are striving in that direction. One, the security environment is much better than before. Those who come here, spend some time here, they realize for themselves. Being away, you have a different perception. But when you are here and you spend some time here, you definitely get a very different and a very positive outlook. And then you work as an ambassador abroad and tell other people that Pakistan is a good place to invest. As the Excellency has just said, it's very important taking your money back. And for investment, as I said, profits are allowed to be repatriated. The State Bank Governor is being made to realize, he's also realizing, the demand is from the Prime Minister himself to create a more enabling environment for the payments and for the remissions. So that is very important. And we know money is of value for the company, for the industry, and that thing has to be taken care of by the government. Thank you.
Can I jump in? This I'll address to our honorable investors. I think this has been very wonderful last few minutes to learn a lot from my colleagues also. I want to make just a couple of points to do with really how I believe, in my humble way, to unlock the real potential of IT in Pakistan. And of course, some of us are based in the US, doing business for 20 years. I think what is important is to realize that 20 years ago, we were up with the dot-com era, and the bubble burst in exactly 2000. 20 years later, fast forward, we're sitting in a total digitization and mobility world. Because it's changed so rapidly in the last 20 years, because the whole environment is dependent on few things. And when you look at this capability and scale, I remember one conversation I had with former CEO of SAP, Bill McDermott, who became a friend. Last 6-7 years ago, I was visiting him, and back then I had about 1,000 employees in Lahore. So he asked me, Najib, what kind of capability you have in Pakistan with your programmers and developers? I said about 1,000. He said to me, look, Najib, when you have 10,000 people in your facility, all skilled, high quality professional, I will do business with you. That means I'll do partnership with you, do collaboration with you. I mean, it was a good message he gave me. So I think what we're facing is supply and demand here. I believe American companies, if they're doing business with China or India for years and years and other countries, some of them are keen in looking at Pakistan as a new frontier, a new IT destination. And we have the ability because we have skilled programmers and developers. However, we don't have the scale. I mean, bigger companies, look, we do business with a lot of blue chip companies, and those are direct contract. You sign deal with them, you support them, you deliver some implementation. But I'm talking about bigger scale. For us, that's Pakistan to become a relevant name in the IT space worldwide, that we need to figure out how we can do the scale and the capability. Because yes, a lot of positive things happening. The environment is very positive, safer, good things are happening. The government is doing some wonderful things. The economy indicators are positive. People need to be able to travel freely, both ways. But if we have more ability, more bigger scale, I think we can attract major partnership, like outsourcing bigger projects. I mean, Kevin knows what I'm talking about. Abu Bakr Sahab knows what I'm talking about. I think we have opportunity, but we really need to work on the scale, capability. So we have a lot more programmers, developers, engineers to support the bigger opportunity worldwide. Pakistan can get there, but I think we made a lot of progress, but I think to have a leapfrog $20-30 billion IT export, it's not possible, not possible. But we need bigger capability and scale to grow that kind of revenue.
Talat, can I jump in with a comment?
Sure.
Yes, sure, please.
I think that this has been a really, really productive discussion. We have 20 minutes left. I think the real question right now is, where do we go from here, right? How do we take these remaining 20 minutes to actually translate and map into something that's going to be ongoing progress and connectivity for this group? You know, a lot of the comments on the WhatsApp, on the webinar have been around, you know, where do we go from here? And I personally think that what we really need to do is to create what, you know, in the software development world, we call a Scrum team, SCRUM, right? We need to create a Scrum team, which is an agile team that is comprised of members, which includes maybe, and not to exclude anyone, but has representation from people who understand marketing, branding. Shabbat talked about this, people who have understanding of infrastructure, higher ed. Najib talked about skills, like how many more resources we need. I think we need to create a Scrum team that basically takes all of the learnings from here, documents them, and then says, how are we going to go off and crack this nut? And how are we going to solve each one of these problems? I fundamentally believe every one of these problems is solvable, but we just need to keep at it. And we now need to chip away at every single problem and solve it tactically. Because if we don't do that and we just have these conversations and feel good at the end of the day and say, yeah, it was a good conversation and good engagement, and we got some good ideas, we have no way of taking that to the next conversation or into specific action steps that move the needle for us. We are going to be having these same conversations a year from now, and everyone's going to feel upset about it, but that's really the only outcome that we will have. So I think some sort of a formation of a Scrum team, or whatever we want to call it, or I don't even want to call it task force because that seems too bureaucratic, but literally a Scrum team that in an agile way goes out there and starts to solve some of these problems. I think that if we had that as an outcome from this call would be tremendously helpful.
Can I just add one more thing to it? I think, Imran, you just hit it on the head. I think this is exactly where people have doubts about these meetings, and just being very open about it, that people have doubts about these meetings because it has happened in the past. People have been put together and then nothing happens and things fade away. And then the new set of people come in and then we talk about this and then this fades away. I think this is our moment. This is our opportunity right now. If we can commit to say, we're going to pick 2 or 3 things that we want to do, whether it's a communication strategy. I am telling you, if you're going to, people would hear, I mean, somebody just mentioned, oh, we have 20 platforms or 15 platforms. Okay, nobody knew that. Okay, I mean, not a lot of people knew about this thing. So if we can come up with a forum, 2 things, communication forum, and then we can come up with the community engagement forum. I think that's a start that we can say the next step will be is like, how do we move forward from these 2 forums into multiple other forums? And I think that to me is, if we don't make an action item here, I think we just made another meeting out of nothing. Sorry.
I think along with jumping in, along with creating a task force, Scrum team, whatever you want to call it, there are 3 or 4 areas that came up as a clear action items. So I would almost say, let's kind of go in and say, what are we going to do about that action item?
Yep.
That to me is the one major, right? Like we should kind of say, here's the trend of things that came up in this meeting, 3 things, what are the follow-up to it, have somebody come back and report on it. I think the second other part that really comes up, and everybody is talking about it too, is like communication, which Abu Bakr, you also talked about. It's like, there's a clear action item, right? Like even a mechanism, not only a WhatsApp mechanism that people are talking about, but a mechanism to really distribute information on what we are doing in Pakistan, right? Like not even when I operate in Pakistan, I'm not clear on, what rights we have and what rights we do not have, right? So I think those 2 can be a clear action item that people can go back and say, hey, we have done this.
Can I just add 1 or 2 more topics to the action items, which can be achieved in a short time?
Yeah.
And this relates to one of the topics that the ambassador brought up about investments into Pakistan. And then Mr. Abu Bakr mentioned local industry collaborations. If you look at the Pakistani, let's not forget the very first software export company out of Pakistan, which was a very large company, Crestsoft, was set up by the Crescent Group, the textile sector, invested in technology, and they created the first export house. But since then, there have been very few initiatives where the local industry, the bigger industrial groups, have actually invested in any significant way into technology. We've only seen in the last couple of years, at least I'm familiar with two groups, the Daud group headed by Mr. Hussain Daud and the Fatima group, which have now made investments and significant, I mean, million dollar terms, nearly $10 million each between these two groups. If we can come up with a mechanism of encouraging other groups, there are about 24 of those who shy away from investing money in technology. I think the kind of capacity Mr. Najib Hori is mentioning would need capital, of course. And so that's one avenue where there are significant industrial groups within Pakistan who can invest significant chunks of money into technology sector. Secondly, if you look at the past 10 years or so, and we have met several people, various industry forums have been meeting people in the Pakistan Stock Exchange, that why are only 3 or 4 companies going public in Pakistan from whichever sector on the stock exchange. And one of the things that the government can accelerate is come up with a second tier market where smaller companies can go public, like they have in India, like they have in the US. So for example, today, as of today, only companies which float up to $5 million of investment can go public in Pakistan. And then they have to go through significant scrutiny and compliance. If some of those avenues could be streamlined, maybe reduce that $5 million to, let's say, a requirement of only $2 million, let's say, to be raised for technology companies. This could be achieved in the next 2-3 months if you just need a couple of meetings with the Pakistan Stock Exchange, and you could have another, let's say, half a dozen companies, which are, let's say, 1/3 or 1/4 the size of NetSol or Systems Limited, that could actually go public in Pakistan to raise those kinds of investments. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Talat, did you have any other questions? Because I see a lot, but mostly I think some of them have been answered and most were about payments.
Yes, ma'am. We have a few more questions. Like one question, I would like Mr. Shahid to address the question of the quality of the graduates that Mr. Kevan pointed out. That what we have been saying is that we are having a large number of IT graduates from Pakistan, but the quality concern was raised with Mr. Kevan. Can you kindly?
This concern is certainly valid. This is assumed that only 10% of the IT graduates are employable. Okay. And a lot of attention being given to this area. We as the private sector are trying to work with the government and ensure that there's a better curriculum in place and there's a better quality of graduates. All right. But we need to take a look into another aspect, right? The primarily conversation is about why the investments is not coming to Pakistan. Right? I would like to sort of also highlight with what Pakistan offers today, with whatever fractured infrastructure, the uncertainty that we all see around, we still are posting growth in the IT services, right? So there's something which is growing, which is something which is moving forward, right? So from a Pakistani perspective, which is increasing exports year on year, I consider that there are few impediments which are easy, or at least relatively easy, to solve in the shortest span of time. And one of them, which is about the visa. So Pakistani small or medium enterprise person cannot get a visa to the US in a small period of time, right? So if you cannot travel to the US, you cannot sell there. Now you do not have any selling organization in the US for yourself, and you cannot travel easily, which means you are unable to promote yourself, to create your brand. So here's the need for government to step in, create that selling entity, or through the diaspora or through another government organization help sell. We're also working with the government to create a study of Pakistan. There is no study on Pakistani's IT sector is available. The last one was done in 2008. So when you talk about how can we increase export, we have to, number one, document the export, document the employable graduates, and then see how the exports can increase. I personally think being privy to so many conversations in so many forums, the quality of graduates do matter. But I think if we are the fourth largest freelancing entity, it means there are fewer opportunities. That is why we have the people who are doing the freelance work, exporting the services, but they're not part of the regular organizations. So the need of the time is to find the ways on increasing the exports through more formal, structured, business to business, contracts. And this is where I believe the visa matters. This is where what matters is to brand Pakistan and the brand Pakistan's tech community in the US and create a sales organization. Quality improvement takes time. Unfortunately, this is not something which has a quick fix. There are so many initiatives taken, AI, blockchain, you name it. There are formal, informal, primary, secondary, tertiary, academic efforts are being given. It will take time. But I think the biggest learning is being done while the people are working in the organizations. So my request to government and our businesses in the US is to find ways on creating opportunities in the US for the Pakistanis to promote their brand and to sell. So,
thank you very much, Azasab. And one last question that we take is, so there are, this would be to the Secretary IT. So there are a few questions about the IT tax-free zones asked by some of the attendees. I believe the government of Pakistan is on track to set up 14 IT parks. Can you, sir, elaborate on this?
Yes, indeed. Things which should have been done much earlier have been started. It's not that things were not done in past. Yes, things were done in past, but now the journey has been hastened. And I've been reading the comments, cloud, data, all these things are being taken care of. And I invite, the participants of this webinar to approach our website. And that's being updated on a regular basis. IT parks are coming up. One is coming up in Islamabad. One has been planned in Karachi. And then there are plans to increase it as well. Moreover, skills, I think Shawal would also add, but we have developed certain skill programs. A recent project has been approved that would bring Silicon Valley trainers to Pakistan, obviously not physically, but through online, to inculcate skills in the IT graduates of Pakistan in order to provide them marketable skills for the countries abroad. We have entered into a world-class Finland university, an arrangement with them to train thousands of Pakistani youth in skills to make them marketable in the countries abroad. So many things are going in that direction. One more thing that is very important, which I would like to, because investors need certainty. As far as IT policies are concerned, they are moving on and they have a pretty good degree of certainty with that. There are, packages till 2025, but if out of this webinar, we gather that we need to extend this period for more certainty and more confidence building in the investors, we can definitely move a proposal to the government, and I'm sure the government would be happy to do that. So Aisha's gestures show that we're coming to a close, but I would just, I understand, obviously, our timeline. Just 2 sentences, and I'll ask Shabad to say more on skills. Talat, Excellency Ambassador Aisha, many of the concerns relate to the real outcomes of the webinar. There's a good beginning, and it's in English to say, well begun is half done. So let us take out some good doables from here. The embassy may take the lead, share with the ministry, and let us do something tangible, which can give rays of confidence to the people sitting out there in America and other parts of the world. Thank you.
So before we end this webinar, sir, I just
Alisha
had a
Saab,
question.
if you would like.
Sorry, I had a question about the Data Protection Act, sir. Uske baare mein bhi bahut
Yeah.
and all
Yes,
kind
I
of on the negative side.
That's right. Data protection, Zahid Jamil is writing about it, is oil, yes. Shabbat says it in the meetings. It's being said. The president of Pakistan says it's oil. Ahsan Farooqi Saab is commenting on it, and there are others also. And we are noting down those points. Each question may not be answered right away. This was the freezer. This has been put up on the website. It was put for consultation. It generated a lot of interest. The US Embassy and the US government have offered their comments. And we had to extend the time for its consultation till 15 June. So the consultation process officially is over. But even then, if there are some suggestions, that is welcome. Very soon, we will start engagement sessions. And only last week before the president, we in a meeting decided that perhaps in the next 3 months' time, we would be able to formulate with due consultation and on the basis of right input which we have received, a draft for the approval of the appropriate forum at the government or parliament level.
Thank you, sir. Before we conclude, may I invite Ambassador Asad Majid Khan to say a few words, sir?
Thank you, Aisha. Let me thank all the panelists, our distinguished participants, and all those who joined from their various stations from across the world. This conversation. It's been a very useful exchange. A follow-up was actually built into this conversation. And that's why we have Secretary IT, Mr. Shabahat Ali Shah, joining this from Pakistan. They represent the government and then we also have all our consul generals. Actually, you can't see them on the screen, but they are part of this conversation, and all our commercial counselors also. So this is indeed not a one-off event. We would like to make it a process. And as I said in the beginning, we have had these conversations continuously over the past year. Originally, it was supposed to be a real event, but then we had to switch it to a virtual event. And then this is going to move, because even within United States also, there are new hubs emerging. UT Austin is one, Pittsburgh is another one. So we will be going to different places to continue this conversation. That's one thing. The second is the focus on investment. Just to tell you that only this morning, we had a virtual conference with the Pakistan Business Council that represents the who's who of Pakistani business, with the DFC team led by their CEO, Adam Buller. Our Prime Minister and US President Trump have already met on 3 occasions. And they have identified business and investment as their key priority. And this morning, we had a comprehensive discussion in terms of how to engage the private sector. And what is it that DFC, with its expanded portfolio and enhanced flexibilities, do to invest more in Pakistan? And I must say, it was a very, very positive and forward-looking conversation that we had. I think one of the conclusions that I have drawn from the conversation today is that we need to cast our net wider, and we need to engage more stakeholders in this conversation, both here in United States and also in Pakistan, across various ministries and agencies that are working on various issues. Because US is important, and IT really is that go-to-get kind of an area that we can focus on. And COVID really, I believe, is an opportunity for us because we can have these conversations at very little cost to our governments and to our principals and to our companies. And this is a potential that we have discovered, and we would certainly like to use it more. I know there was this emphasis on communication strategy. Agreed. I was myself shocked to learn about things that I had not known, despite having served in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for that long. So we need to communicate better amongst ourselves and also with our clients and customers and the public in general. We also, I think collaboration as a key point came out. We really need to have closer collaboration between both ends, the export end as well as the import end, the sellers and the providers as well as the users. And we really had in you as our panelists a great combination of both. And I'm glad that we could have that conversation. So in terms of payments and some of the impediments. And in fact, as I was sharing with you the conversation that we had with the State Bank, and it's not, I mean, even for the startups, it's not just the inflows into Pakistan, but it is also the outflows from Pakistan that is a challenge. And that has basically been an impediment in the rapid growth of a robust startup ecosystem in Pakistan. I mean, IT, we have grown, but it's peanuts, frankly, given the potential that we have, the huge ingress that our diaspora has here, the potential that we have. And I think the other very important point that came out of this conversation was to basically focus on improving the human resource in Pakistan. And that's where I frankly think that education is the best takeaway. We also had a webinar the other day where we focused on the challenges that our students are going to face in view of COVID. And someone mentioned about the visas, and we are in conversation with the US State Department also, because really, I think education, technology, and scientific education, STEM is a key takeaway from this country. And we would like to continue to create those opportunities. And within the STEM area, I think IT and technology is the most promising sector. So we have recorded this entire conversation. So whatever you have said is part of the record. We have also saved all the comments. I know some were general, some were not that kind, but trust me, candor is what we need, and self-criticism is what we are looking for. And as long as it is constructive, we are here for you to advise us, and we will continue to rely on your advice. There are lots of very good ideas that we have taken note of, and you will hear from us again. And we will also be actually waiting to, and those of you who could not say their piece are certainly welcome to basically send in their comments in writing, also through emails that Consulate will be sharing. And I'm also happy to share with you that USPBC, which is the premier business platform between US and Pakistan, is also represented today in this conversation, although you don't see them. And even our friend from the State Department, Masinga, tried, actually, he continuously tried for almost 50 minutes to come in. And he was actually to be seen, but could not, unfortunately, speak or see or be part of this conversation, which I very much regret, because he would have brought the US commitment. So my point and bottom line message is that there is a complete political buy-in at the highest levels of the two governments to promote business and investment. Now it is for us to make that happen. And I am ready to work with you and my team also. So thank you very much. I thank you all for sparing such a long time for this important conversation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this very comprehensive wrap up. I think you have covered all the points that were discussed during this webinar. And I had been, prior to the discussion, in touch with some of the panelists. And I just want to reiterate once again that this is not a one-off. This is, inshallah, going to be a series of conversations and events in which we will continue to be in touch with each other. There are a lot of big takeaways from today's meetings, webinar, and we look forward to building on them. We look forward to staying in touch. And I absolutely agree with the point on follow-up. We've had these, many of these actually, for several years. I've been in the service 20 years. I've seen many. Ambassador Saab has participated in many more, and all of us have done that. But now I think is the time for consolidation, for follow-up, for being methodical. And this is what came out from the government side, from the demand side. So I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Secretary IT, Shabahat Sahab, and all our panelists, Shahid, Shahzad Shahid Saab from Pakistan. I know it's getting late there. And everyone from here, from the US, from the West Coast. I think it's been a very useful conversation. Very special thanks to Talat, our commercial counselor who worked day and night to make sure that this is an event in which we can have solid and good conversations. And I look forward to staying in touch with everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.